Assalamu alaikum, brother Imam.
Walaikum assalam, Imam Duhan.
I've heard you mention a number of times that many of our African American public intellectuals have been influenced by communism and communist thinking and reasoning. Um, would you be able to go into like some more detail about that? Uh, what's how to correct whatever is wrong in that thinking?
There's complexity here. There is degrees of understanding, and there is the intersection of terms that may be having similar meaning and may be confusing, you know. So you have the term communism, socialism, Marxism, and capitalism, and even democracy. You have these terms, and these terms, they evolve. They have different meanings associated with them, I guess you could say, historically, that aren't necessarily what is meant presently. The Chinese, for example, they have an idea, and it's Marxism or it's communism, but their idea is not the same as the Soviet Union. Or you could say Russia, coming from Marx and communist thinkers. It's not the same, not exactly the same. And then you have movements in the Western world that we're familiar with, like Cuba, and what is understood to be Marxism or communism in that expression, not quite the same. And you have also similar ideas that have influenced the African American intellectuals, and is associated with the freedom interest or freedom movement of African American people. So in focus for the African American people who claim communism or socialism or that's associated with them, in focus for them is freedom and justice. And the flaws and injustices of a Western capitalist system. So in that discussion, there's complexity, all right? And we can't come necessarily to an answer for all of these things in this time period, in this brief space of time we have right now. But in its purest form. Socialism is to identify the destiny of human life as focused on constructing a suitable society. So there's also the term that has been used, Islamic socialism. Islamic socialism. Imam W.D. Mohammed used this term. And he referred to himself as an Islamic socialist. He said that. The term also, I know of another person who used the term, but didn't have necessarily the same understanding or have the same meaning as Imam W.D. Mohammed, but political leader, influential person in Pakistan, Bhutto, Ali Bhutto. He used the term Islamic socialism. So what did Imam W.D. Mohammed mean when he said he used the term? He's referring to Islam's capture and focus on what is a just society. And that this is the natural inclination and property of human beings who have ambition for establishment in human society. To be egalitarian in your interests, that is to be universally fair, and your discipline is toward fairness, fair distribution of wealth, fair distribution of knowledge, appreciable attention and respect for the potential of human life, for the dignity of human life, support for the progress of human life in its purest and most ethical framework. This is socialism. Now, we're coming from an Islamic conscience. We're coming from an Islamic discipline. So the argument is made in the garden, which is the natural social environment, the environment which God created and placed his human creation, the human soul and human consciousness. He put it in the garden. And in the garden, an argument is made to the human person that God created, that there's more to that environment than what God is revealing. And that everything that that environment produces belongs to the human creature in its use. An argument is made to the human being that you have access to this and it belongs to you, but God is not telling you about it. So transcending moral discipline and claiming everything that God created as your own in the interest that you have without moral consciousness is also a movement in society. And to justify, even briefly, disrespect for human life and human worth in order to obtain circumstances to support human life is antithetical and against Islamic discipline and Islamic moral reasoning and against the purity of socialist idea, but is communist. So the overturning, the violent revolution of society, the temporary or circumstantial denial of rights in the period of revolution is justifiable in communism, but in the purity of socialist idea as disciplined by Islam or as focused by Islam is not. So in other words, the ends justify the means. The ends justify the means. That's a communist idea. That's the argument of the shaitan. It leads to extremes. It leads to disrespect of the dignity of man. It justifies any kind of behavior and thinking with the intent to overturn an unjust system. Within the thinking and writing of the professors and intellectuals and the African American people, there is this influence. It's in their Christian doctrine, some of them. They leave the dignity and the moral discipline of Jesus Christ's leadership and justify the pursuit of justice by any means necessary. Communist idea.